It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Do you want more success, more growth, more results? Then it's time for the Boundless Success Accelerator from the Modern Observer Group. This isn't your average coaching program. It's where top performers come to dominate. Weekly group sessions, on-demand coaching, a community that's got your back, and a power-packed library of tools to supercharge your business and career. No more excuses, no more waiting. Get in, level up, and start building the life you've been dreaming about. Visit us at modernobserver.com/boundlesssuccess to join today. Let's get you to the next level.
Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. I think we're going to start, Dr. Lopkin, after our review, pre-recording review, on what we've touched on in other podcasts, but it just doesn't go away, and that's the growing irrelevancy, how do you like that, of the Democratic Party, and the strengthening of the wacko communist anti-Semite wing and the shrinking of, let's just say, the normal wing, which is pretty much Jurassic Park at this point. You actually have Nate Silver, respected pollster. Basically, he's saying that in his estimation, AOC will be the Democratic nominee for president, and that's also juxtaposed with the Mondavi momentum. I think he will get the nod. That's my prediction, at least. Things are not looking good. I mean, if AOC was nominated, let me ask you first, Dr. Lopkin, how many states would she win? I have a thought, but I'll let you answer.
I'm going to go with about 8.
I think 3.
I think she'll take California, New York,
Yep.
Illinois. She'll take Connecticut, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Maine, and Vermont. That's the 8.
I'll give you Vermont. I stand corrected on that. I don't think she'd even get Connecticut, and she may not get Illinois, but it will be a landslide, correct?
Oh, it would be, because the American people do not want a communist. Again, New York City has never been representative of the country. And
no,
the country does not want a socialist. The country does not want a communist. But I am going to say I disagree with Nate Silver. I don't think AOC is going to be the candidate. I think.
Who do you think, Doctor?
I think the reason that AOC came up in his polling as the most likely candidate is that the person that is going to be the nominee has not come forward yet, and so they can't poll for him or her. Take a look at virtually every election going back at least 40 or 50 years. The person that got the nominee, and this is for both parties, was not a front runner this far ahead.
I will give you that, Dr. Lopkin, but how do you like this? And I want your comment on this. I believe it's a little indicative of what happens at the midterms. If the Democrats get their ass kicked, which is a definite possibility, or lose seats at least, that is the same thing as getting your ass kicked, given how things usually go. then I think they might have a come to Jesus. You might get someone normal. If things are not dramatic, just hear me out.
I'm not saying that they'll choose somebody normal, but I think they'll choose somebody that's not in the spotlight right now.
Okay, no. But I think, though, just listen to this concept. I think if they get an ass whooping, then they might have, well, actually, I stand corrected. They may either gravitate, they'll get more polarized. Either they'll get more normal or they'll get more effed up. Do you agree with that?
Well, those are the only options they have. Either they fix the problem or they lean into it.
My prediction would be that they go more left, because that's where all the momentum is.
That does seem to be what's going on. And the problem is, I don't think it has so much to do with age or belief that's pushing the Democratic Party this far to the left. I honestly think it's because the folks that are pushing the left are the ones that know how to use social media effectively. So they're reaching their base, but they're not reaching the moderate Democrats. They're not reaching, what we used to call the Reagan Democrats. And the people who would appeal to more moderate Democrats don't have the slightest idea how to reach them. I mean, this is an actual fact that just recently came out. Gen Z, which is now the youngest voting generation, is more entrepreneurial than any generation since the baby boomers. Now, do you really think that Gen Z wants a communist or a socialist getting in the way of their entrepreneurial plans? Of course not.
I'm glad you brought that. Glad you brought that up. I agree with that 100%. Here's where I think the Democratic constituency is. With young people, they're not the people you're talking about. They're going in droves to the Republican side.
Right.
Where I think they still have traction, however, is the Ivy League retards and baby boomers retreads. Retards and retreads. How do you like that, Doctor?
There is still a large portion of the baby boomers that are Democrat, but the Democrats are actually losing that audience as well, partially because of their policies and partially because Father Time is removing them. Remember the age of the baby boomer generation. We're
70?
old and older.
Okay.
We're already.
See, I think I think you have a good point as always, Dr. Lopkin. But I do think if they are dying off or they're just going into nursing homes and not voting, but I do think they are the two pillars, or maybe the strongest pillars of the Democratic Party. I think if I was going to guess, and I'd like your comments, so what our listeners, I'm sure the two pillars of the Democratic Party, I still stand behind this, are baby boomers and Ivy League retards that don't know what's going on, that have never worked a day in their life and have no plans with their history degree or affirmative action degrees, have no either inclination or ability to enter the workforce.
Yeah, I think, well, there's
hard
also
history too.
Yeah, there's also a third pillar that will overlap some with baby boomers and Ivy League, but it doesn't necessarily fit within either one. And we've talked about this group before, and this is the strongest group that the Democrats currently have, and that's the awfuls, affluent white female liberals. This is the only reliable base that they still have.
And why is that, Dr. Lopkin? I'm glad you brought that up. Why?
I wish I could figure that out.
I think I can, Dr. Lopkin.
Okay.
Hear me out, and then you comment. I think it's not going to affect me, okay? They're living in rich communities. They're have elitist degrees. They're global elitists. And I think some of the psychology is that I'm above the knuckle draggers that are part of MAGA. It's a way of expressing their elitism and superiority. How do you like this? And knowing shit's never going to hit their fan. How do you like that, Lopkin?
I think that's actually a very good analysis.
Thank you.
It's what we call the NIMBY problem. Not in my backyard. It's great to vote for these folks when they're going to make changes on the other side of the country. But we saw this with Martha's Vineyard, where all of these people, absolute diehard liberals, supporting illegal immigration until they were placed in Martha's Vineyard. And then, nope, we have to get them out of here immediately.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Yes, I thought that was a brilliant. DeSantis was brilliant at that. I 100% agree. Now, let's probe a little deeper. We want your insight into the predicament of a communist who's associated with the Democratic Party taking over the Big Apple. I think that will be a thorn in the side of the Democratic Party, will hurt them in both the upcoming presidential election as well as the midterms. How do you like that? Because when he gets in, just hear me out, when he gets in, he doesn't have to have a muffler. He'll talk, intifada, about all the crazy shit that he's into.
I think he will talk about all of that stuff. But what has been very obvious with especially a lot of his policies is that he does not actually understand what the job of mayor is. A lot of the policies that
Does he care?
Well, he's going to have to once he gets the job, because a lot of the policies that he's pushing are things the mayor has no ability to affect. They fall to the city council, they fall to the governor, they fall to the Congress. He thinks he's going to go in and do all of this. So as soon as he hits, remember how 6 weeks into the Trump term, the Democrats were hammering, well, he hasn't fixed all the problems yet. The Republicans are going to do the same thing to this idiot. They're going to, he promised all this stuff. Where is it? He hasn't been able to do anything. Plus,
I think it's going to be worse than that, Dr. Lopkin.
It's going to be much.
Yes, no.
The
substance you are right on. The optics are going to be far worse. The people that he's going to embrace, the people that will have the megaphone, and also your comment on this. I think this is critical. Eventually, the Dems are going to have to choose sides. Do they endorse or not endorse? And if they don't endorse, you think that has no repercussions. It may, because then you would alienate the whack job fringe. It's not fringe anymore. The whack job communists that are increasingly becoming a majority of the party.
Yeah, this is actually going to be a watershed moment for the Democrats, and the Republicans will take full advantage of it by pointing it out, because the Democrats actually have to make a decision. Are they going to do what's best for the city, or are they going to do what's best for the party? What's best for the party is for them to unite behind the nominee, which is the communist. What's best for the city is to keep him out of office. Because, and I guarantee you this will happen, if he does win, you are going to see an exodus from the city that hasn't been seen since the 70s. It might make
since biblical times, since Moses. How do you like that?
It might make the white flight of the 70s look like a trickle. Businesses are going
100%.
to flee. The affluent folks are going to flee. Anybody who's actually supporting the city, monetarily, will
Wall Street
leave.
could flee.
Wall Street
Wall
could
Street
flee.
could flee.
I will point
Why
out
wouldn't
that
it?
I will point out that NASDAQ already has offices in Texas. It would be very easy for them to leave. And I think, quite frankly, if the governors of New Jersey and Connecticut have half a brain, they'll start lobbying for the exchanges to move to their states now.
Actually, I think Stanford would be good. And also, we talked about a lot, if Philadelphia had a brain, they would also. There's so many possibilities. I bet that behind closed doors, many cities, municipalities that have the infrastructure, have the setup, are already licking their chops. Connecticut's too brain dead. No way.
I can guarantee you they are. In fact, a billboard went up this week in Times Square advertising for businesses and people to move to Ohio.
It will be something.
And that was, by the way, put up by Vivek Ramaswamy, who's running for governor of Ohio.
Yeah, you're right. I recall that now. But don't you find it interesting and very, very early, Dr. Lopkin? Steve Hilton, he's an author and also he had a Fox News show, blah, 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 but very early. But he's actually polling ahead. He's a Republican in the California gubernatorial race. I know it's way early, but that does say something, does it? Or maybe I'm wrong. You tell me, Dr. Lopkin.
It does say something because sentiment among California voters has made a dramatic shift just in the last several weeks as they try to rebuild after the California wildfires. And the liberal government of California is putting roadblock after roadblock in their way. I personally know people who are still staying on friends' couches because they cannot find anywhere to live in California. These folks don't want the liberals in charge anymore. And you are talking about a major percentage of Los Angeles.
Now, let's talk about that, though, and we look at the political landscape. Gavin, even Morning Joe, who I believe is a moron, they were talking about how he was in South Carolina, blah, 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 whatever. Even he said, who he's basically close to the retarded level, said that he's got too much baggage. I don't see it happening, especially after the wildfires. I think Gavin's not going to have a future. What do you think?
I honestly, again, using history as a guide, based on how early he's campaigning and how early Democrats and Republicans have campaigned in the past, I think it's a 50-50 shot that he doesn't even make it to the first primaries.
Why is that, Lopkin?
Because historically, the folks that campaigned this early don't have the legs to do it. At this point in the 2020 presidential election, the front runner for the Democrats was Kamala Harris. She was out there campaigning. She never even made it to the primaries.
Also, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think he is going to be out there campaigning. He has already made comments saying transgender males should not be in women's sports. And yet he has done nothing about it. He has done this several times where he's made campaign comments that are diametrically opposed to the actions he's actually taking. And I think when the Democratic debates start up, he is going to be hammered on that. And I don't think I think there's a 50-50 shot he's not even going to be able to make it to the first primaries.
Could you help me out, Dr. Lopkin? Because this does puzzle me. When you have people like Kamala, who we'll talk about, she was on some stupid podcast and they had to put it in the can. It was that, and Gavin. What is it? I mean, I really don't understand, because I own things when I F up. Okay, how can you be one of the worst governors in human history? That is Gavin. How can you be basically a mental midget, that's Harris, and still think you are presidential material? That is chutzpah on steroids. It boggles the mind. It boggles the mind.
It's chutzpah, yes, but it's also the Democratic mindset of entitlement. I don't have to work for this. I'm entitled to run for president. It doesn't matter if I'm not a Mensa candidate. I'm entitled to be president. That's how the Democrats have been running their party for decades already. I mean, remember, unless something dramatic happens, 2028 is going to be the first actual primary that the Democrats have run since 2008. 20 years they did not have a real primary. They anointed somebody and put them up. So these are just folks going, well, this is my turn. I check the boxes. I deserve to get this. And they don't care about the voters. They don't care about the country. They care about themselves.
Riley Herbst from 2311 Racing here. And you know what grinds my gears? Waiting for coffee. But instead of counting frappes and lattes, I fire up Chumba Casino. No apps, no fuss, just fun social casino games to pass the time. By the time my coffee's ready,
order for Riley.
I've already taken a few victory laps. Next time you're stuck waiting, make it entertaining. Play for free at ChumbaCasino.com. Let's Chumba.
Sponsored by Chumba Casino. No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
I would agree, but you know what really disturbs? No, it actually gives me chills, literally, is the thought of Harris as president. They just did this whole thing in Pennsylvania with artificial intelligence and getting, business leaders, tech leaders together in Pennsylvania, about how you're going to generate the power. And I thought to myself, imagine if Kamala was the president. I mean, that is like bone chilling.
Well, again, I don't think she's I don't even think she's going to run. At this point, I think she's pretty set on running for governor of California. But
no, I'm saying if she got in, how chilling that would have been.
That it would have been an abject disaster. And not just for us. You would have seen NATO coming apart at the seams. You would have seen, you thought immigration was bad under Biden. Imagine under Kamala. And you actually have now books coming out by Kamala staffers which are saying, her own staffers are saying they were in control because she doesn't have a brain in her head. This is her people saying this.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't think she's going to run. She may run for governor, but that will flame out so quick. And by the way, selfishly, because I really don't care about California, I could care less, I want her as governor because I would love to have crises or, things that are really, she has to come to the forefront. That would be get popcorn and get a beer because it would be probably the funniest show ever on TV. Imagine her with like a wildfire or a riot or a financial problem. It would be unbelievable.
Well, they've got a financial problem. California has $1 billion deficit. Now, first of all, that's going to pretty much disqualify Governor Hairgel as from successfully running for president, because everyone in the Democratic primary is going to hammer him on that. Everybody in if he manages to get the nomination, everybody, his Republican opponent will hammer him on that. could you imagine Harris trying to answer the question of how she's going to solve that problem? This is a woman that lost $1 billion in 100 days on her campaign. And I don't think Harris is ever going to actually be able to run for office again unless
I would agree.
she magically finds a way to self-fund, because donors are burnt. They are not giving her a dollar.
You know something? Everyone should find their true meaning in life, and her perfect job would be working for a wine and alcohol distributor in California. Something she's focused on, good at, that is drinking, and probably in her bailiwick in terms of IQ. Maybe not the IQ part, but the drinking definitely. It would be fun. So now you have the Democrats looking at Trump. You have the founder of Home Depot, who did not vote for Trump, saying on a CNBC, that's not a conservative media, saying that he did not vote for Trump, but he's now converted, so to speak, that he's now a fan, and he believes that looking at his first 6 months, if he continues with this trajectory, he says that he could go down, that is Trump, as one of the greatest presidents in the United States. So why do I mention that? Because you have someone that is, yes, successful, but not a conservative, okay? You have, look, inflation way down. You have the thoughts of a recession probability lowest in 5 months. And then you have the Democrats, their shtick, I'm sure it comes out of a focus group, is to talk about Joaquin Jeffries, who's another Mensa candidate, talk about affordability. These things don't jive. Now, I know politics is always bullshit, but you have to have some thread of logic. Do you not, Dr. Lopkin?
I don't know if logic is the right word, but
credibility.
Yes. You
have to have, let's say, if you're talking about the bad economy, there's got to be some sign of a bad economy. Might not be a huge recession, inflation. There's got to be something there. You can't just make shit up. Yeah, you can for a while, but eventually, especially with the credibility factor given the auto pen, I think it doesn't have any traction. People could see with their own effing eyes.
Well, that's the big thing is, no matter what party you're running on, you have to have a connection with the voters. And the Democrats are rapidly losing that connection. And every poll that comes out has them losing a little more. And the part of the problem that they're having is that, one, they refuse to accept responsibility for the Biden debacle.
Okay, wait, before you go on, I agree with you. No, but I think it deserves further elaboration. How big is the magnitude of the Biden debacle? I think it deserves a little bit of Lopkin's insight. Go ahead.
Well, the debacle itself is absolutely massive, because they were telling people day after day, oh, behind closed doors, he's a dynamo. Oh, and everybody saw it. Now you've got tell-all book after tell-all book coming out going, yes, we knew this. This is what actually happened. But it's more than just the cover-up. It is the entire presidency. Because Biden was asleep at the switch and the staffers were running the show, you had the runaway immigration. You had runaway crime. Well, guess what? Now that Trump is in office, crime is down across the board because they're rounding up the criminals. You had runaway inflation. Now, inflation's not as low as it should be, but it's 2.7% year over year.
That's pretty low, Dr. Lopkin.
Right, as opposed to 9.8%, which is what it was at its highest during the Biden administration. But they don't want to accept responsibility for this. They don't want to say, yes, The Infrastructure Act is what pushed inflation and affordability out of people's reach. The Inflation
Can I ask you one question,
Act,
please, about that? Yeah.
Go ahead.
In the Infrastructure Act, was there actually any infrastructure in that? I'm just asking the doctor.
There was.
I don't think there was much.
No. There was actually infrastructure in the bill. Approximately 10% of the Infrastructure Act actually had something to do with infrastructure.
Nice. I like it. Very good.
So it was one thing after another with the Democrats going, oh, no, inflation's not so bad. It's transitory. It'll get better shortly.
So is terminal cancer.
Right. The border is secure. There's no problem at the border.
None.
It was all of the issues, and nobody within the Democratic Party seems capable at this point of saying, you know what? We screwed up. We need to fix this. And
Lopkin, what you just said would be the cure. How do you like that?
Yes.
It works on a personal level, and it works on a say, yes, we made some huge mistakes, and we need to correct it. Stop bullshitting. You're 100% correct.
And you'll notice the only person within the Democratic Party that has done anything close to this is John Fetterman, and the party is lambasting him for it.
They hate him. Yes, very interesting. Now, when you talk about the whole face of the Democratic Party, these ICE raids and the deportations, again, getting on the 20% of an 80-20 issue. You had unaccompanied, it's not funny, actually. You had unaccompanied minors on a pot farm, and they're calling it, they're blaming the ICE agents. Like, what is wrong with that picture? Are you insane? First of all, you shouldn't have any unaccompanied minors anywhere, and God forbid on a pot farm. And by the way, the guy who owns the pot farm is a big Democratic donor. Oh well.
Yeah, the owner of the marijuana farm is a Democratic donor in general, but also a major donor to Gavin Newsom in particular.
There you go.
But more than that, yes, child labor laws are a big problem. So let's say they were legal immigrants. You still violate child labor laws here. So they should have gone in. 2, they're here illegally crossing the border. They were literally smuggled across the border in some cases. So yes, yet another reason for them to go in. But the biggest one, and I find it absolutely amazing how little airtime this is getting. Even on Fox, I would expect them to be hammering on this. Those unaccompanied minors who were working at the marijuana facility were working side by side with people who had criminal records for pedophilia.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
100% and child trafficking.
Yes.
I mean, how can you stand on that issue? Because you know what it is? I think at the heart of it, the Democrat ideology and mindset is that everyone else is so stupid that you can say the sky is purple. And of course they'll believe it because the unwashed masses are a bunch of idiots, aren't they?
I think it's even more basic than that. At this point, the only viewpoint of the Democratic Party goes back to Orange Man bad. If Trump is doing something, it's wrong. We have to fight it. If Trump went out and said, "Don't eat dog shit, it's bad for you," the Democrats would be chewing down dog shit.
Maybe that's an angle. Even Mark Cuban said what you said. Stop focusing on Trump and do something. I'm not a big Mark Cuban fan, but he's right. I mean, it's enough is enough, dude. I mean, come on. It gets comical after a while.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is that Trump is not a diehard Republican. No matter what the Democrats want to, how they want to paint him, he's not a diehard Republican. He's not a diehard conservative. If a Democratic congressman or senator went to Trump with a good idea and said, look, this is a major problem. I've got an idea to fix it. Not only would he listen, but he would take that under advice. He would say, yeah, how can we do this? Let's work together.
100%. Yeah, I would agree with that. But let me ask you a deeper question. And I'm not being naive. It's really how did this Trump derangement situation happen? Was it because he beat Hillary? I mean, this is over the top. They never liked the Republican. They didn't like George W., George H. Of course, they embraced him after. The list goes on. Ford was a moron. Yeah, Carter was a genius. Anyway, what is at the root of this? Because it's almost, not almost. It defies logic. How do you like that? It's not normal. Like if you were obsessed with someone as much as the Democratic Party is with Orange Man bad, I mean, you'd have to see some kind of, a therapist or something. If it was an individual, Bob Jones, and you're infatuated with this person, you got a problem. Something's wrong. Your thoughts? How did it happen? And why can't they get over it? That's the real question.
Well, why can't they get over it? I can't answer. And I've said this in the past. I do honestly believe that when the DSM-6 comes out, now the DSM is the guidebook for psychiatrists and psychologists on diagnosing mental illness. Right now, the DSM-5 is the current version of this. But I honestly believe when the DSM-6 comes out, Trump derangement syndrome will be a recognized disorder. Now, it started in 2016 when the Democrats had virtually complete control over the media. You did not have all of the podcasts that we have now. You did not have essentially an alternative to what the Democratic story was. And Donald Trump has never been a politician. So over his entire career, he has said and done things. And the perfect example is the famous Access Hollywood video that came out during the campaign about how he was talking about women. And the Democrats played this ad infinitum. Every nasty thing he said, and quite frankly, they made it worse by taking certain things out of context. I remember he was talking about the Great Recession and how very smart people were able to make money during the Great Recession by understanding how the financial systems work. And he made money off of the people suffering, and they hit it over and over and over to the point that people believed what they were saying. And then when he actually had the audacity to beat Hillary Clinton, who had been anointed from the Democratic Party as the next U.S. president, it just sent them
president of the world, actually.
Yes, it just sent them into a tailspin. And they've never, I remember very clearly the gasp and sob that came out of Lester Holt's mouth at 3 a.m.
I love that you are correct.
3
yes.
a.m. on election night when Trump was declared the winner.
Or you have Martha Raddatz literally crying on ABC. Yes, that is correct. I think that's interesting. I definitely do. Now, when we talk about the Democratic and let's just say legacy, you had Joe Biden. I guess he actually mustered up the energy to have a 15 or 10-minute conversation with the New York Times talking about how he was fully in charge. And you also had that with Barack Obama. He was on, actually his wife's podcast. Maybe he's trying to not to prevent a divorce, but anyway, that's another issue. But talking about men and how, trying to be relevant. The question is, I think they're in full, well, I don't know if Biden's in panic. I think maybe Dr. Jill is in full-blown panic because certainly Obama knows that his legacy is completely in the shitter.
Yeah, that's
and they do have an infatuation with it, don't they?
They do. I don't think it's an infatuation. I think it's a full-blown obsession that the Democrats have with legacy. I mean, remember in 2016, when Obama was on the campaign trail for Hillary Clinton, at no time did he ever say Clinton was the best person for the job. Nope. He was campaigning saying Clinton was the one that would protect his legacy. That was the only thing he was campaigning on. And if you take a look, this is something that is a major driver of the Democrats. Because if you take a look, I mean, Trump obviously doesn't care what his legacy is. He's putting himself through all of this. He could have just retired in 2020, said the hell with all of this, and, made another fortune in real estate. He doesn't care about his legacy. George W. When was the last time you heard from George W.? He's doing amazing.
Like never.
He's doing amazing things with veterans on his farm, but you never hear about him because he doesn't care about his legacy. George H.W. didn't care about his legacy. Well, Reagan, we don't know if he cared about it or not. By the time he left office, he was suffering from dementia. Gone. But Gerald Ford.
No, let me interject one thing. I think if Reagan did not have dementia, he would have gone on the farm with Nancy and just gone off into the sun. He might have done a couple of speaking engagements, but he would not. Like, Obama's actually embarrassing himself, isn't he? You're like the 1960s rock group that's still touring, just trying to scratch on to some kind of relevancy. Am I not correct?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically the impression he gives. He's out of touch. He's, just to defend him a little bit, the Democrats keep trying to bring him out of retirement and keep bringing him back through these speeches, through all of this, because the fact of the matter is he's still the closest thing the Democrats have to a grown-up in the room.
I think he's the closest thing they have to anyone that's, let's just say, somewhat qualified, maybe.
I wouldn't go that far.
I'm not sure.
I wouldn't go that far. I don't think he was qualified when he was president, but
100%. And isn't it true, isn't it true that he's becoming, not just because of time, but because on further introspection, his legacy does kind of suck, doesn't it? Yeah, it's a shithole, just like his library.
His legacy has fallen apart, and this is something that is just seems to be ingrained in Democrats. I mean, the Clintons were so obsessed with legacy, that's the only reason they're still married. I mean, remember, she wasn't going to leave him no matter what he did. She was going to stand by her man, despite the fact that she was, critical of other women that would have done this. And the only reason she did it is because she wanted to be president, and it was easier with him on the campaign trail for her.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Again, flipping a little bit to presidential candidates or potential. Waltz, is he pretty much over? Because I saw a little clip of him and his wife, who's literally clinically insane, at some kind of Minnesota rally get-together. There's no chance of that happening, correct? That's done.
No, if Waltz thinks he's running for president in 2028, he's deluding himself. Again, he can throw his hat into the ring. If he makes it to a primary, it'll be a minor miracle, but there's no way he's going to get the nomination or by any chance be able to win, the whole thing, because the Democrats are looking at him going, you got slaughtered by Trump. Why would we bother with you?
And one of the reasons he certainly contributed to her demise. And do you know the reason why she chose him? She's a genius. One of the big reasons.
She didn't have another option. Every Democratic presidential candidate has chosen a vice president that's dumber than they are and less capable than they are. Well, when you get Kamala Harris trying to find somebody less capable, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
You're talking about squirrels,
yes,
chipmunks, whatever. But anyway, Dr. Lopkin, another great show. I do agree with you about Kamala. I think she's pretty much done, and it'll be interesting to see how the whole thing unfolds. But our listeners, as always, can contribute to the show, can't they?
Yes, they can. We'd love to hear from you. Go to xvadio.com/connect. Let us know what you're thinking. You can also message us on the Carnivore Radio Facebook page. And of course, you can hear every episode of Carnivore Bites at the Carnivore Radio website, xvadio.com, the Apple Podcasts app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Audible, and other platforms that respect freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. See you next week.
We'll see you then.
Hey, it's Ryan Seacrest. Life comes at you fast, which is why it's important to find some time to relax. A little you time. Enter Chumba Casino. With no download required, you can jump on anytime, anywhere for the chance to redeem some serious prizes. So treat yourself with Chumba Casino and play over 100 online casino-style games, all for free. Go to ChumbaCasino.com to collect your free welcome bonus. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.